So let's just look at this picture here for a second. It says, the way of life, from paradise lost to paradise restored. Now, this was a picture done, and it's part of the Seventh Day Adventist Church. It's part of our history. So I'm going to take you a little bit through some of the artwork in the history of the Seventh Day Adventist Church. So this is the Adventist Review, and you can find a few articles on this subject with this all-seeing eye, right? So the title, The Way of Life, and it was from Paradise Lost to Paradise Regained. And this here is a newer picture it's probably the newest picture that they have actually out in print. Maybe, I'm not sure if there's another one right now or not. But you can see many differences as they change in progression. So this was the very first picture right here. This one was shown to James White by Merritt G. Kellogg. This one says it was designed by that person, but there was another one article that says it wasn't designed by him. He just showed it to James White. And James White thought this was so amazing. It showed the whole plan of salvation, which is exactly what I thought. I didn't realize there's all this stuff going on with this picture, but I seen it. I'm like, that's so beautiful. Even in how it's laid out, it takes you from the start of creation here, and it works you all the way to the new creation of the earth made new, the New Jerusalem, where we eat the supper again with Jesus, all the way through. And here is the reaper that comes to reap the harvest to take them to the New Jerusalem, which is being prepared in heaven, where we'll be in heaven before it comes down to the earth. That's why it's up in the clouds here. But even the progression, it was like James White was inspired with the progression of this picture. So here we see, he called this the law tree. I'm going to call this the tree of life. Just for a simple fact that without the law of God, there is no life, because that's the whole reason why this great controversy is going on this earth, is because God's law was broken. And the wages of sin is death. So there is no life without it. So the tree of life, on it hangs the law. Does that mean the law can save you or has anything in it? No. It only shows you what love is, if you can understand that. But this all-seeing eye here causes a big stumbling block for a lot of people. And Satan has taken this all-seeing eye, and he's made it such a thing that conspiracy theorists just love it. And they're like, that's Jesuit, that's pagan, that's Illuminati, and anyone who has that is straight from the devil. So while many Seventh-day Adventists say the same thing, they don't realize that in our history, we have this all-seeing eye here. And we don't know who made this picture, but I do think who made it was inspired, because it's pretty neat. So let's just take a look at this picture for a second. Here we have the angel that is casting out Adam and Eve, right? I'm not sure if they're casting him out. You don't see a flaming sword here, but you can tell that there's like a sword in the hand, but it doesn't appear bright or flaming or anything. We just see Adam and Eve have to leave the Garden of Eden. And then we can see that Cain and Abel here had died. And this is where the deception comes in from Satan. He doesn't want you to know that God sees all that happens. God knew what Adam and Eve did. They couldn't hide it from him, right? That's why they tried to cover themselves with fig leaves. Interesting. So maybe this... notice they're not wearing the coats of skins that they're taken out of the garden with, right? So there would have been no death in the garden, because the Garden of Eden came from God. He planted it on earth after the creation. He created everything and then planted the Garden of Eden for man. So I don't know if it was the same day man came, but we just know he planted it here. And you can find Bible verses that show that the Garden of Eden was in heaven before. So there could be no death probably in there. So they would have been cast out of the garden, and then they would have had to make their first sacrifice, which starts showing the plan of salvation. But Satan really doesn't want us to believe that there is an all-seeing eye. And part of the problem with this is that God's eye is on us not to look at our faults and see what happened here. He watched Abel just as much as he watched Cain. And he watched everything that's going on. He watched Jesus the whole time. He wasn't there wanting Jesus to die on the cross, right? The all-seeing eye even has his eye on a sparrow. We're told this. He knows numbers of hairs on our heads. He does what he can to help us not fall to temptation. It's only about good. But the problem is, with all the conspiracy theories, your mind is led to believe in only bad, and all kinds of things happen. People bear false witness all the time. So James White had published this picture here, and then the critics kind of start coming in, and there's a difference going on here. But I really believe this is truly inspired, this whole thing. So we now see that the eye is gone. And we see that the New Jerusalem has now come down from heaven, and it's on the earth, or at least it looks like it's on the earth. And you'll see there's a different person in the picture here. And things are changed a little bit. They're still wearing fig leaves. They're still not wearing the coats of the skins from the lamb that was slain. But we can see here we do have a bright sword, or a flaming sword, as you're being told to leave the Garden of Eden. We still have the law on the tree. But there's a little bit of difference here. So the eye is gone, but the law is still here. So even just the law here shows that God still sees us. But notice this little space here. This space actually changed between the law and the cross compared to this picture here, where the law and the cross were just about touching, if not touching, in the corner, where they're showing that there's something similar here. But here it almost makes it look like the cross goes behind the law and that the law comes to the forefront. So while James White helped in directing the changes for this one, they made some changes which were good, and they're not bad, but it's just a neat progression going on here. I could only explain it all. So you have to have the law, because it was because of the law that Jesus was put on the cross, because he died for our sins of what had happened here through all humanity before us. And now there's a little bit more of a space, so you can see that the cross is now starting to come more to the forefront. When you first come to Jesus, the first thing you think of is that God sees everything that I do. And if you didn't believe that he's seen everything that you do, you would not give yourself to him, because you're like, I can do whatever I want. But he sees what you do, and you know that he looks at you, and his law is what we're judged by. And we know this because the Bible tells us plainly we're judged by the law of liberty, and that's what this is. It's to set us free. If we break the law, we're enslaved to it, and we enslave ourselves to death, because the wages of sin is death. But as you come closer to God, so we must remember, James White seen this as a progression of the plan of salvation. You can even look at it as, like you could say first day, second day, third day, fourth day. Fourth day I guess would be, kind of the cross here, however you want it, or fifth day. And it's going across, because this is when we have our rest. This is a jubilee, when we're in the New Jerusalem. But here we see something else, right? So the eye is gone, but we see that New Jerusalem's come down. So Jesus came down to earth, and we're not thinking so much about God, but our focus is more on Jesus, and Jesus starts coming more to the forefront. Now, I guarantee you they did not have all this in mind when they started doing these pictures, and there's another picture that's going to come on here. But part of the reason for this is because they had so many people saying, oh, you're about the law, you're about the law, you're about the law, and you're not thinking about Jesus. Well, we move to this picture here, and this is a progression, and Ellen White and her son finish this picture where Jesus now becomes the center. It's not quite perfectly centered. It's still a little bit over, and it's beautiful reasons for it. We see the New Jerusalem up again in heaven, right? This is where our faith is in heaven. And we no longer see the tree of life. We no longer see the law. We no longer see the all-seeing eye. But we can see the scenes of things that are still happening all around us. And that's what happens in a Christian life, is you start here in the Old Covenant. There's nothing wrong with starting the Old Covenant. The Old Covenant was good, perfect, true. It was just built on wrong promises. And what you see is God looking at you in the law. But as you start to trust more in the cross of Christ, and all the other scenes that happen, before the cross and after the cross, revealing the plan of salvation, right? Where we sup with the Lord, we're baptized, right? And here's a trail that takes us to the way to the New Jerusalem. If anybody's read Pilgrim's Progress, all these things are kind of written out in here too. And then you can see that things start changing, where all of a sudden you don't think about God following you, but you're still thinking about the law. You're still thinking about Jesus and the cross. You're still thinking about heaven and how Christ in you, the hope of glory, right? That Jesus can be on earth with us through baptism, through the supper of the Lord, because of his sacrifice of the sin that had happened earlier. And then when we come to here, when you fully accept the cross and you fully accept Christ, you no longer see the law, but it's still there. Because you can see it in the works all around. You can still see that men are still going through the same progression as before. God still sees you. Even in this picture here, you see the sun behind the New Jerusalem. The sun in the Bible, we know that the Son of Righteousness is spelled S-U-N with a capital S, meaning Jesus. And the light from Jesus shines over the whole world. There's nothing that escapes the light of Jesus. Every day there is light, and then there comes night. But it doesn't matter. There is always a day that comes again. And the light from God is his love and his care for you, because the light brings life. Even in the plant world, you could not have plants without the light from the Son of God, right? Without the light from the Son of, and I'll say Son of Righteousness, you could not have light. So this light is what gives life to everyone and everything on this earth. So the sun is like an eye, and its light falls on everyone. It doesn't matter. Everyone will have light fall on them. They might be at night, but the day comes in the morning, and no one can escape the light from the Son of God. And so when we go back here, the all-seeing eye is not evil, but it's not supposed to be our focus. And as we grow, we focus and we forget that God's watching everything that we do, but we start looking at this and understanding this more, and that's why we sacrifice and do the things that we do. And eventually we come to the place where we no longer see the law, because it's written in our hearts and in our minds, and we just do it automatically, and not thinking about the condemnation that comes with those that break the law, because we're no longer breaking it. And I just believe that's beautiful. So Ellen White will also verify this more and more. So while these pictures show this progression, so her writings show this progression also. But her writings will also tell you that this all-seeing eye here is still there, even when we get here. Now let me show you something. People will talk about, I already typed it in here, so all-seeing eye. Let's just do all collections, including compilations. And we hit enter, and it comes up. Oh, I don't want it as paragraph here because it just made it a little, well, we can see it in the paragraph. So in here, it has one spot where it says, in Ellen White's writings, you should bear in mind that the all-seeing eye of Jehovah is witness in all your counsels. So we have one spot that's in all the writings, but if we just do lifetime works, it disappears. There's none. So you'd think somebody added that. But let's go to something older. And I don't know why they did that. If they're like, it's paganism, so we're just going to, like, anybody who types in all-seeing eye, let's just not have it show up. Because there's a lot of things now that I want to find that I used to be able to find, and you cannot search them anymore. And I was always like, hey, you know what? They're super easy for me to remember. I don't need to put it away in a file because I can just type it in quotation marks and it'll be there, like all-seeing eye. So let's try that. All-seeing eye. And we have 61 hits. Now here you can't do lifetime works, but you can see this is 1864, 1991, that's old, 1882, not that, 1911. So this here, let's just look at this one. In the Great Controversy, right? We have the all-seeing eye that reads our hearts, right? God reads our hearts. He sees and he knows everything. I guess I probably didn't need to do that, but in the Great Controversy, you can see that Ellen White even says, but God's all-seeing eye reads the hearts. So, for all those people that are in the Seventh Day Adventist Church saying, Illuminati, Jesuits, you're just calling Ellen White an Illuminati Jesuit, and you don't even know it, but you're ready to accept the Sunday law, because you're already walking down that trail. Let's keep our eyes focused on the Bible, and we should study Ellen White's writings to know and understand them, which helps us to know and understand the Bible, so that way we can answer for ourselves from the Bible alone. And out of all these, you can see 1888, 1880, 1888, 32, that's old, 1884. So there's so many of them here that she says all-seeing eye. I don't know what the latest one is, 1911, where the Great Controversy was put out. That might be the last, like the newest time that she said it. But if we look back here at these pictures here, the eye was removed, and that's 1876, and this was 1883, and she's still saying all-seeing eye, and there's no pictures after that. So let us just remember to keep all things in our mind, that not everything is evil, and that Satan likes to counterfeit things to make things appear evil, to deceive, if it were possible, the elect. But he's going to deceive many of the saints, and they're going to fall away, and that is very unfortunate, because they should study the Bible and know that God sees everything that we do, right? And it's because he loves us and he cares for us, and that's why he watches what we do. That way he can help us in our times, because there's no temptation that comes to man that God does not make a way of escape for. So while he recognizes and he sees our wrongs, he also recognizes and sees that he made a way for us not to commit those sins.